The FBI does not do accidents. They do not just wander into a room, not a century-old Tucson landmark, not the oldest family-owned Mexican joint in America. They do not start grilling people about a film crew unless they already have a target. What they asked, and the why behind it, is the heart of this. Because the trail does not stop at a kitchen, it leads somewhere much darker. It points to how Nancy Guthrie was hunted. If the feds are right, this is where it started. El Charro Cafe might be the birthplace of this entire nightmare. Let us look at the facts. And the massive black hole of uncertainty right in the middle. There is a snag here. A detail most news clips just ignored. Brian Enton, the guy usually 3 steps ahead, dropped a bomb on March 11, 2026. He reported that federal agents hit a Mexican restaurant in Tucson to squeeze the staff for info. Crucially, Enton kept the name quiet. He did not leak the location. He said investigators retraced Savannah and Nancy's steps from their 2-day shoot. They went to that restaurant. They had very specific questions. Social media solved the mystery. El Charro Cafe was outed by its own posts. The restaurant had shared footage of the Today Show filming on their floor. Other outlets confirmed it. El Charro is a legend, the perfect spot for a family meal. Savannah, her mom Nancy, and her sister Annie were all there. "I have to come here," Savannah said. It was her Tucson ritual, 103 years of history. Carlotta Flores has run this place for 5 decades. She took over from her Aunt Monica, the woman who supposedly invented the chimichanga. They shared a drink, an old prohibition secret, tequila in teacups. "I love you," they said. Then things get messy. The Arizona Daily Star started digging. They reached out to Ray Flores, the president of the company. His answer? Total silence. No feds, no calls, no visits, nothing. "We would have talked to them," he said. They never reached out. The FBI gave their standard no comment. So we are left with a standoff. A top-tier investigator says they were there. Management says they were not. Someone is wrong. Or someone is lying. Maybe the feds went around the bosses. Maybe the message got lost in the chain. We are not here to settle the score. But this contradiction, it matters. It tells us exactly where this case is headed. When a reporter as solid as Enton says the FBI went in and the owners deny it, only a few things can be true. Either the sources are bad, or the agents went straight to the servers and bypassed the suits. Maybe it was not a formal visit. No badges at the front desk. Could have been an ally, a third party. In a case this massive, it is possible. Federal hunts are messy. They do not always use the front door. They do not always announce themselves to the person who owns the building. But Enton's report is the foundation. It is the lead we have to follow. Those specific questions, that is the real story here. Because whether they were there or not, the questions reveal a terrifying theory. Agents allegedly asked, was anyone suspicious? Was anyone taking photos? Anyone lingering? Read those again. That is not a checklist. That is not procedure. That is a hunt. They think he was there, watching, waiting. A woman at a restaurant. But before we get to the questions, we have to go back. This is how El Charro ended up in the crosshairs. October 2025. 3 months before Nancy Guthrie vanished, a national camera crew rolls into town. They set up inside a Tucson landmark. Millions would eventually watch the result. October 17th. Savannah Guthrie is back home for a special called Homecoming Today. It is a series where anchors revisit the places that made them. 8 hours of filming, multiple spots. It started at dawn in the national park. The Desert Museum was next. Then, lunch at El Charro with her family. They finished at the university, her alma mater. The president was there. The band, her sorority. But El Charro? That is the part that matters. 2 family members joined her. The segment aired November 5th, 2025. It was nostalgic, sweet, a love letter to a city she never truly left. At the cafe, Savannah sat with her mother, Nancy, and her sister, Annie. For several minutes on national TV, Nancy Guthrie was the center of attention. She answered questions on camera. She told the world why she loved Tucson. "It is wonderful," Nancy said. "The air, the easy, gentle pace of life." She joked about desert wildlife eating her plants. She was visible, exposed. Savannah asked her, "Why stay? Why plant roots here in the 70s? "It is just so wonderful. The air, the quality of life is gentle. I watch the javelinas eat my garden. But seeing you guys is the best. A prickly pear margarita toast. Cheers. I love you. Love you, too." A true daughter of the desert, she was introduced to millions of strangers. Savannah's mother, 84 years old, a Tucson local for decades, tied to one of the biggest names in news. Now, look at that through the eyes of a predator. It was not some obscure clip. It was on YouTube. It was everywhere. Local papers reported the visit before it even aired. The Daily Star followed her. They tracked the crew in real time, landmarks, locations, every stop. The trail was cold-bloodedly clear. Then, February 1st, Nancy is gone. Suddenly, that footage goes viral. Everyone is looking for a sign. Now, every word she says feels heavy, like lead. A casual Tuesday lunch. Now, it looks like a setup. Investigators have a theory. Did the killer see that segment on October 17th? Were they watching the restaurant then? Or did they see it air later? Here is the kicker. Cops are scrubbing surveillance from her neighborhood. They are looking back to January 1st, a full month before she vanished. 2 dates stand out, January 11th and January 24th. Neighbors confirmed the questions. Cops were at their doors asking about those dates. One was asked about the 24th, exactly 1 week before the end. The canvass started early. That tells us everything we need to know. This was not a random crime, not an impulse. Nancy Guthrie was being hunted. The killer used that broadcast as a playbook, a map to her life. Every shot provided a guide for someone with a dark mind. They had her in their sights long before they struck. Her backyard, Catalina foothills, mid-January. Someone was out there, lurking near her home. It was calculated, cold, totally intentional. Look at the map. The Catalina foothills isn't some throughway. It is a high-end maze north of Tucson. You don't just end up there. People go there for a reason. On January 11th, a stranger appeared. He had a purpose. He had a target. He was back on the 24th. He wasn't lost. He wasn't a traveler. He knew this was Nancy Guthrie's house. He was certain. Where did he get that info? Think about the El Charro lead. Cameras rolled on October 17th. A family lunch turned into a blueprint. The show aired November 5th. If the suspect was already scouting her house by January 11th, something clicked. A bridge formed between screen and street. One question ties it all together. It is simple, it is terrifying, and the FBI is betting the house on the answer. Did he find her through the Today Show? Did he catch a glimpse of her during that October shoot? Or maybe he watched the broadcast. Did he see her and just decide? Between November and January, the clock was ticking. He was moving from an idea to a hunt. He saw her. He wanted her. He planned it. That is why the feds are obsessing over a Mexican restaurant. They have the proof. Security footage pulled from the neighborhood shows the truth. They saw what Nancy couldn't see. Shadows on her lawn. Twice, unidentified men standing on her private property before the snatch happened. They were testing the perimeter. 2 dates. 1 stalker. He kept coming back. This wasn't a random crime of opportunity. It was an obsession. He was all in. He didn't just pick her that night. He was already committed. The FBI is asking one thing. When did the clock start? If El Charro was the spark, someone was watching that film crew on October 17th. Someone saw Nancy Guthrie at her favorite spot. She was just having lunch at her usual table. But that afternoon, her privacy died. She became a mark. Let's talk about El Charro. It's more than a restaurant. In Tucson, it is the center of the world. Monica Flynn started the place in 1922. It is a legend. The oldest family-owned Mexican spot in America. A century of tradition. Same family, 100 years. Carlota Flores runs the kitchen now. She's the niece. She knew Nancy. She knew the family well. Carlota spoke to the Post after Nancy vanished. She didn't hold back. She described a woman who was the heart of her home. She called her wonderful, like everyone's grandmother. Nancy was humble, a proud mom who just wanted her kids to be happy. She was kind, quiet, but she had a daughter who lived in the spotlight, and that changed everything. That last part, it bites. A daughter in the limelight. For a kidnapper, that's not just detail. That is the motive. Fame is a beacon. A national broadcast put Nancy's face and her favorite hangout on every screen in the country. It made her a target. Suddenly, an 84-year-old grandmother was accessible. She was reachable. She was vulnerable in a way she never chose to be. El Charro isn't some hole in the wall. It's a Tucson institution. It's loud. It's busy. It is where everyone goes to be seen. It's a landmark. Tourists flock there. Production trucks park outside. It draws the kind of crowd you can get lost in. Put a famous news anchor in that room, and the energy changes. Everyone notices. Everyone watches. The whole street knew. People in Tucson are protective of El Charro. It's part of the city's DNA. It has outlasted everything else. It's an identity. So when Nancy Guthrie tells millions of viewers that this is her family spot, people listen. She wasn't just talking about tacos. She was giving away the coordinates. She was pinning her family to a map. Anyone with a phone could find them in 30 seconds. It was a public invitation to a private life. Every trip home meant a stop at El Charro, 100 years of history, and one afternoon that changed it all. They filmed in a private room on October 17th. Management tried to keep it quiet. They closed the doors to the public, but the restaurant was still hopping. 50 customers were eating just a few feet away. Big cameras aren't exactly subtle. You can't hide a network crew, not in a place like that. Word traveled fast. People knew the Guthries were in town. The local papers even picked it up. Now, the FBI is looking at the crowd. They want to know who was staring, who was just hanging around, who was watching the technicians, who was standing on the sidewalk with their eyes glued to the door. Detectives are hunting for the lingerers. Someone took a very dark interest in that production. They were taking notes. Once that segment hit the air, Nancy's world was wide open. Millions watched, and one of them was a predator. Law enforcement is pulling these strings. They are trying to find the truth before it fades. The community is terrified. The timeline is a perfect match. Observation, planning, execution. The neighborhood footage caught a man who didn't belong. He wasn't delivering mail. He wasn't visiting friends. He was a shark in the water, waiting for the right moment. The news of the filming was everywhere. Even the papers ran it. Investigators have one obsession. Who was in that crowd? Who was paying attention? Who was counting the seconds? Agents are looking for the face that didn't fit. Someone was watching. Taking photos? Anyone lose their cool? Any red flags? Investigators are looking for a specific signature, someone whose interest went way past just curious. They weren't looking at the cameras. They didn't care about the celebrity anchor. The whole TV production? Ignored. Their eyes were locked on one person, Nancy Guthrie. Let's break down this surveillance theory. Because this interest in El Charro, it's not a one-off. It's part of a pattern they've been building since February 1st. We've talked about the property cameras before, and the neighborhood door-knocking. But here's the absolute core of this specific angle. Cops are scrubbing footage and hitting up neighbors all the way back to at least January 1st, 2026. A whole month before Nancy disappeared. They specifically asked about January 11th and January 24th. The message is loud and clear. Someone was lurking in that neighborhood, near Nancy's house, on those exact dates. It wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't some random impulse, not even close. Hanging around 3 weeks before the snatch? That's reconnaissance. That's target confirmation. It's cold, methodical behavior. It doesn't happen by accident. Then there's the doorbell footage. February 10th. Footage drops. A masked, armed man on Nancy's porch at 3 a.m. on February 1st. He was ready, mask on, gloves on, carrying a 25-liter backpack. He spotted the camera instantly, tried to disable it. This was a hit. We're past wondering if it was planned. It was. Now, we need to know when the clock started. When did he first see her? The El Charro lead suggests this started way back in October 2025. If that's true, someone spotted this woman on national TV. They ID'd her, tracked her to a city, mapped out her social life, and they made a choice. Weeks later, he's in Tucson, watching, waiting. Then, on the night of January 31st, bleeding into February 1st, he came back for her. We need to look at Brian Enton's report. It's critical, not just for the what, but the how. Enton's been solid. He's been the go-to source since day one. His track record in this case, flawless. His sources have deep roots. When Enton talks, you listen. Here's what he found. Cops went back to the Today Show film sites from last fall, including that Mexican restaurant. Enton's sources say the FBI was already there. They were digging into the TV segment, asking staff, "See, anyone suspicious? Anyone taking weird photos? Anyone getting aggressive? Was someone just hanging around? In a creepy way?" Now, here's the catch. Enton is using sources, not the owners, not the FBI. They aren't talking. And the local paper, they got a different story. They talked to Ray Flores. He's the president of the parent company. He was blunt. The FBI never called. He said they would have talked if anyone had reached out. They never called. It's a massive contradiction. But that doesn't mean Enton is wrong. Federal investigations are tricky. They don't always walk through the front door. They talk to servers, off the clock. They use middlemen, things a CEO wouldn't see. But the conflict is there, and it's huge. We won't call it a fact while the owners deny it. But here's what we do know. Those questions? They point to a very real investigative theory. A theory that someone was hunting Nancy Guthrie on October 17th. That TV segment? That's when she stepped into the crosshairs of her kidnapper. That's what the FBI is chasing. But there's one more detail from that El Charro meal. Who else was sitting there? It wasn't just Nancy and Savannah. Annie Guthrie was at that table too. Nancy's daughter, Savannah's sister, right there on the screen, eating with them. Exposed on national TV, right next to her mom. And we already know about Annie Guthrie and her husband, Tommaso Cion. They're names you need to know, not as suspects, as context. Nobody's accusing them, but the evidence, it sits uncomfortably close to their every move. Cion was the last one to see her, the final witness. He dropped her home in Catalina foothills. 9:50 p.m., January 31st. Police cleared the family completely. They're out of the spotlight. Why Annie at El Charro? That's the pivot. That's why the surveillance theory has teeth. Picture the suspect watching that Today Show segment, October 17th, in person or on a screen. He didn't just see Nancy Guthrie. He saw the dynamic. He saw Savannah, the famous anchor. He saw the mother, the sister. He saw exactly what a Guthrie family dinner looked like, who belonged, how they moved, how tight the bond was. All of it laid bare. For a predator building a profile from the outside, that's pure gold. Actionable intelligence. It maps her world, her inner circle, her social rhythm, everything an outsider shouldn't know. It shows a typical Guthrie night, who stays close, who lingers. It's a blueprint for a hit. That TV spot was an accidental portrait, a window into the family's private Tucson life. And the person watching for all the wrong reasons? They saw it all, every single detail. Since the start, one question has haunted this case. One massive, central mystery. Did her kidnapper know her personally? The insider theory has always been a heavy hitter. Look at the timing, the precision. They knew her routine. This wasn't a lucky guess. They knew the cameras, the floor plan. This wasn't random, not a chance. But El Charro, that flips the insider theory on its head. It changes the game entirely. You don't need a personal connection. You don't need a traditional insider. Not anymore. You don't need to meet someone to study them. Not in the age of national TV. Social media. Parasocial access. For public figures, privacy is just a suggestion. It's a target. Savannah Guthrie is a household name. A face everyone knows. Her Tucson roots? Public record. She leans into them. Her hometown. Her favorite restaurant. She showed the world everything. A meal with her mom and sister. On national TV. It's exactly what the audience craves. It's perfect TV. But to someone with a dark plan, it's something else entirely. It's a tactical briefing, broadcast to millions. This woman is 84. She lives in Tucson. Here's her face. Here's where she eats. Here's her famous daughter. It's all right there. 6 minutes of morning TV. That's all it takes to make a stranger feel vulnerable. You don't have to be in the room to be a threat. If this is the theory, a stranger maps you out online, then they show up, on the ground, filling in the blanks. El Charro isn't just a cafe. It's ground zero. The moment watching turned into hunting. If that's true, it's no coincidence. It's a countdown. October to February 1st. Police didn't look at El Charro early on, not in those first few days. They missed it. Think about that. Usually, they cast a wide net. They look at everything, everyone. They talk to neighbors, check security cams, move in circles from the house. Standard procedure. But El Charro? It's nowhere near her home. Not even in the neighborhood. It's off the map. It wouldn't show up in a standard search. So why did they end up there? Why El Charro? They asked deep questions about October 17th. That means they used pure logic to find it. They worked backward, followed her public footprint, found the Today Show clip. They asked a simple question. What if he saw her on TV? Did the media lead him there? When was the last time she was on camera in Tucson? In a spot anyone could find? October 17th, 2025. El Charro. Whether they walked in or just called, they were asking questions, talking to the staff. That tells you everything you need to know. The focus shifted, the lens turned. They're looking at something much darker now. Something purposeful. Rewind. All the way back. Investigators are hunting for the start, the spark. Right now, that spark might be in a century-old restaurant, a random Tuesday afternoon in October, a camera crew, a family meal, and someone in the corner watching, closely, watching the wrong person. I need to be straight with you. You deserve the truth. Is this a breakthrough? That word is thrown around way too much in cases like this. A real breakthrough means the fog clears. It means the police actually know something new, something big. The picture sharpens. A path opens. By that standard, it is not confirmed. It is messy, darker than the reports say. Here is the reality. Brian Enton, a pro, reported on March 11, 2026, that the feds were grilling restaurant staff. The place where the Today Show filmed in October. They asked about cameras, about rage. They asked about the people who just would not leave. There is a theory here. Management claims the FBI never called. A total dead end. But here is what we know. Agents are swarming Nancy's neighborhood. They are scrubbing tape from January 11th and 24th. And New Year's Day. Security cameras caught shadows on her property, different nights. Before the snatch, then the horror. A masked man, armed, gloved, on her porch. February 1st. He had a plan. He was ready. But here is the catch. No names, no arrests. As I record this, there is no official suspect. Still, the logic connecting that restaurant to the timeline is too tight to ignore. If he saw her on TV in October or November, that gave him 8 to 10 weeks. 8 to 10 weeks to watch, to learn. That is a massive window for a predator. This was not random. It was a hunt. And that restaurant is the likely starting line. Whether or not the feds were there, the theory fits. Look at the behavioral questions. These questions were not random. They show exactly what the FBI is thinking. The photography. That is a surveillance signal. Predators do not just watch. They document. They take photos of doors, of driveways, of the target. They build a file. If someone was at that restaurant on October 17th, and they were not filming the celebrity anchor or the crew, they were focused on her. An old woman eating lunch. If you are filming her, you are a red flag. Those photos hold secrets. They show where Nancy lives, what she drives, her route home. Then, there is the rage. It is an entitlement response. A stalker locks on, but someone gets in the way. Maybe security moves them. Maybe a waiter blocks their view. They snap. They get frustrated, way angrier than a normal person should be. To you, it looks like a bad day. But in a crowded room, people are eating, laughing, but one person is seething because they can't get closer. That stands out. You remember a face like that. In a kidnapping case, that is not just a mood, it is a motive. Then, the lingering. This is the big one, the person who just stays. They finish their food, their coffee is cold, but they are still staring. The cameras pack up, everyone leaves, but they circle back. Waiters see everything. They know when a guest stops being a customer and starts being a problem. Something felt wrong. If the FBI is asking, they think someone stood out that day. October 17th. Someone wasn't a monster yet. They were just off. That gut feeling is evidence now. Look at these three signs. The photos, the rage, the stalking. They all point to one thing. He'd already made the call before he walked in. El Charro wasn't a fluke. It was a choice. Forget the forensics for a second. Look at what this theory really means. It's heavy. October 2025. Savannah Guthrie returns to Tucson. Her family is already suffering. She produced a segment about love. Joyful, personal, everything morning television is built for. She sat with her mother at their usual table, a spot they'd likely visited for years. She asked what made Tucson feel like home. Nancy answered. Millions of people watched. That afternoon is now a federal exhibit. If the theory holds, someone was watching that broadcast. They marked Nancy, identified her, used national TV as a roadmap to find and snatch her. An 84-year-old woman, abducted, an act of warmth, unknowingly used as a weapon against them. This isn't Savannah's fault. It isn't Nancy's. It's nobody's fault. Appearing on TV isn't a crime. Going to your favorite restaurant isn't a crime. Loving your city of 50 years shouldn't make you a target. But this is the reality for public families. A world where being open equals being vulnerable. The same camera that builds a career also exposes everyone in the frame. 6 minutes of footage. One viewer. The person who should never have seen it. Carlotta Flores told the Post that Nancy just happens to have a famous daughter. In the limelight. In this investigation, that phrase limelight carries a weight it was never meant to have. As of right now, the search for Nancy Guthrie is still wide open. She vanished February 1st, 2026. No body, no arrests. 7 weeks in, 0 charges. The family is offering $1 million for her return. $1 million. For a name. For the truth. The FBI added another 100,000. Neither reward has been claimed. Not yet. The evidence is stacking up. A specific, ugly picture of how this crime went down. We have leads. We have directions. The puzzle is starting to fit. No name yet, but they have dates. January 1st, the 11th, the 24th. They're tracking a ghost. February 10th, doorbell footage drops. A masked gunman on Nancy's porch. He was prepared. Armed, masked, gloved. 25-liter pack. He knew exactly where the camera was. He hasn't been identified. The DNA from the scene? Nothing in the database. Some samples were dead ends. Others are still in the lab. Ransom notes hit the media. Deadlines came and went. No money was ever paid. People were detained and released. But property cameras saw more. Figures were on the property before the abduction, stalking the grounds. March 18th. 2 sources confirmed those images exist. It's not the gunman. Sheriff Chris Nano says they think they know the motive. He won't reveal it yet. He's keeping his cards close. They aren't 100% sure. Then, the sheriff issued a warning. Don't assume you're safe. Just because it happened to the Guthries doesn't mean you're off the hook. Don't think for a minute you are safe, he said. That's not what a sheriff says when a case is closing. It's a warning of an active threat. The trail leads back, from the kidnapping to the restaurant, back to October 17th. The investigation is moving through time. Backward. The theory reaches further back than anyone expected. Months back. They aren't just looking at February 1st. They're looking at what started in October. If you've been with us from the start, you know our rule. We don't post unless. Look, this is worth your time. We've kept our heads. No wild guesses. No rumors. No garbage. Just the facts. We have a responsibility here. This video matters because of El Charro. That lead, it changes the entire theory of the crime. Forget if the feds actually walked inside. Doesn't matter. Here is the reality. Nancy Guthrie wasn't random. She was a target. Maybe because of a national TV broadcast. Or maybe he saw her in person at the filming. Maybe both. Then he stalked her. For weeks. Methodical. Planning. That changes every single piece of evidence. Those January cameras? That wasn't a search. That was confirmation. She was already dead. The property footage isn't a prowler. It's a man who already made his choice. He committed to this long before he stepped onto that street. The masked figure on the doorbell, that's not the start. That's the finale. Months in the making. A Tuesday afternoon, October, El Charro Cafe. That is where the clock started ticking. October, the cafe. November, the broadcast. January, the hunt. February, the end. Regardless of the FBI's boots, investigators are tracing a line backward. They're hunting the origin. And that path leads straight to El Charro Cafe, a Tucson legend, family-owned since 1922, the last place you'd expect a predator. October 17th, 2025. The Today Show crew is inside. A famous anchor, her mother, a warm moment. But the question remains, was someone watching Nancy? Not the cameras, not the host, her. Nancy, 84 years old, just a proud mom at her favorite table. She'd been going there her whole life. The police think she wasn't alone. Someone was watching. And that look set the gears in motion. If they're right, this isn't just a search for a kidnapper. It's a search for the exact moment she stopped being a person and became prey. From a private life in Tucson to a target on a list, the cops are asking the right questions. They just don't have the name. Not yet, but the search continues. They're grinding, analyzing evidence, reviewing every frame of those January tapes. DNA is at the lab. Tips are pouring in. The pressure is building. The signatures, the threads, the net is pulling tighter every single day. The answer is there. They asked about El Charro for a reason. Someone was watching Nancy that day. You've been with us this long. You know how it works. One detail changes the whole world. Every video is a thread, and the threads are finally connecting. Stick around.